Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to the UGASports Live podcast. My name is Rodney DeBolsey. I'm joined by Jake Roos, the recruiting guru at UGASports.com, and of course, Hall of Fame Georgia head coach Jim Donnan down there on the end. The main reason everybody's tuning in. We want to get his thoughts on the Tennessee game. Before we do that, we'll give a quick shout out to Champions. We are here on Baxter Street. We've got the great three-piece chicken in front of us, the fried okra. Why is the fried okra on the other side of the table?
Inconvenient, that,
Trying
isn't
to
it?
keep it out of your way.
This is what I get for having these guys as co-hosts. This is so we have two new openings for co-hosts. If you're interested in joining the UGA Sports Live, you just got to not want to steal my fried okra.
Yeah.
Anyway, big shout out to Champions on Baxter Street. Of course, 365 Game Day, that's the Facebook page you're on. And Athens Ford, of course, big sponsors of ours. Aaron Overhead Doors is a big sponsor, as is Academia Brewing Company and Europie. Before we get into Coach's thoughts on Tennessee, we'll let him have a few more of those nice, crunchy, fried okra pizzas. I want to let everybody know what we're doing this Saturday. This Saturday at noon, go to our YouTube page. This is going to be something we've never done before. I don't know if anybody else in the market's doing it. I'm sure everyone will do it after we do it. But
You know it.
we're going to have a watch-along party. It'll be me, Coach Donnan, Dane Young, basically at Coach Donnan's house in his giant man cave with the screen up. We're going to be watching the game. Now, we can't show you the game on YouTube because we don't have millions of dollars to buy the TV rights, but you'll be able to tell what's going on, and we'll get Coach Donnan's commentary on the game as it goes through. I'll make up some stuff, and big shout-out to Anheuser-Busch for sponsoring it.
And I'll be working
Yeah,
at the game.
I'm going to send the other guys out to work while me and Coach Donnan drink beer and talk about the game. So it'll be a lot of fun. Just tune in on YouTube.com. Go to the UGA Sports channel. I'll be sending out links. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We'll be sure that you can find it.
They can ask questions, too.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Ask questions about the game. If you want to know where the toss sweep went, we'll tell you. You know, if you want to know what the defense you're looking at, Coach Donnan can tell you that. I mean,
Listen, I'm not hating on those announcers. I know that that's a tough job they got, but I will say I'd rather mute the TV and listen to you guys.
well, think about it. You got the announcers. They come in on Thursday, Dave. So they come in on Thursday. They meet with the coaches, and they get a meeting that we don't get. But they're there for a 3-hour show. And then they're gone. They leave town, or they go and have a nice dinner and take off. Coach Donnan knows his team backwards and forwards. You and I cover them every day from, some of these kids since 8th grade. We should be able to give you some insights that you're not going to get from whoever's calling the game. And I don't even know who it is. It could be the greatest broadcasting team of all time. I'm just saying that we will know more about what's going on than they will, and you will get unique perspective. Now, we're going to be 5 or 6 seconds behind simply because of the way, you'll be watching it, and then we'll be watching at the same time you do, but by the time our response goes up to YouTube, it'll be 5 or 6 seconds, but it's not like it's going to be jarring or anything like that. And
I'm not going to give a play-by-play.
No.
It's going to be more of – we used to do this at ESPN.com on big games where people would just send in questions, but also, we would myself and somebody else would just watch the game and talk about it from a coach's perspective and, maybe some tactical moves that might be coming up and things like that you can look for. And it's all just a way to help the people on our site and the people that want to listen and watch that aren't on the site. And we appreciate good friends at Budweiser, particularly Leon Farmer III, for coming through for us and helping us buy this new equipment that you got.
Yeah, we bought a bunch of new equipment, came in yesterday. Boxes of fun stuff, so it wasn't cheap either, so be sure to tune in.
I'm not getting paid this month. That's an easy way to say
You
that.
didn't get paid last month. All right, let's jump ahead. You know to tune in. We'll just follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We'll mention it again. Coach, I want to get your thoughts on the game against Tennessee. We had a good post-game report from you, but not everybody caught that. Granted, it was late. It's 11:30. We don't get me wrong. We had thousands of people catch it, but now we're talking to tens of thousands of people, some who might have not been up that time or they switched over to watch something else. Give us your take on this Tennessee game. I know a lot of people were freaking out that Tennessee was able to throw the ball. They had success through the air. It doesn't matter, apparently, that Tyson Campbell was out. It's in times because Tennessee scored 14 points on Georgia.
Yeah, any way you look at it, you can find something wrong with every game, and that seems to be the tendency first off. Obviously, we got off to a slower start than we'd want, but you got to realize anytime a team has 2 weeks to prepare for you, just like we had 2 weeks to prepare for them, they came out with a new quarterback. They also came out with a couple really good calls by a coach who has practiced against our defense for 3 years and knows some of the ins and outs of our coverages. And they caught us in a coverage where we had a one-on-one with the free safety, and he bid on the double move, and they hit a big play on us. That's going to happen to the best of players. But, my overall take on it was the fact that we continue to show all kinds of way to attack people on offense. Our defense is still really good against the run. It's not giving up a touchdown this year on the rushing game. And as you mentioned, without Tyson Campbell, we do have some guys back there that are playing. Daniel's missed one game, so really that's his fourth college game. And as a major college, he was in JUCO, so probably not playing quite as many packages as we'd play if we had Tyson Campbell back there. But the bottom line for me is a very athletic team, a team that can make adjustments as necessary. And it's a four-quarter game. That's the whole point. When we needed to make the move there at the end of the second quarter, we got a couple good scores on the board after they missed the field goal. And it's just life is the way it is. I mean, you analyze everything to the max, and there's certain things we got to get better at, but there's a lot more we're good at than we are bad.
Now, Jake, you were there. You know that everyone talks about the fact that, Georgia took over that stadium. They did not. Okay.
No, Tennessee did it. Tennessee was out there for sure. They
had 92,000 people announced attendance.
Yeah.
That thing holds 100,000. So they basically had the same number of people that you would have at a Georgia game.
Yeah.
That's about the same.
Now, not by the fourth quarter. But.
No, not by the fourth quarter. But it was a hostile environment. They did some things that Georgia hadn't seen before. They took advantage of some guys that were out, and I just don't – I think that the overreaction – and it's not everybody. A lot of people realize that you were favored by 25. You won by 29. You scored the final 33 points in a row. But I think that once they hit that one big play, one big touchdown, the atmosphere in that stadium changed. Am I wrong?
No, I would totally agree with you. And, look, the thing about it is – Jim Chaney, after 14 points, he seems to struggle. All right, they came. No, I will.
So mean.
No, but I will say now, Coach. I want to ask you this because I did feel did that look different to you from what you saw during Chaney's time here? I thought that there were some points where they kind of sped things up. They were kind of playing a little run and gun, loosey goosey, and it felt a little bit different to me than what we'd seen previously out of Chaney.
Yeah, I think you always coach around what your personnel can do, and they made a quarterback change, which is a pretty big deal because the guy was an upperclassman, and when you do that, you kind of shoot a hole in him, saying you're basically everything you've done as far as building camaraderie with your team, leadership, fellowship, all that. It's going down the drain, and you're asking kids to believe in a guy that's only been on your campus there for several months. So, but the Marr kid's got a pretty good arm, and he was very good on the catch and throw. And what we're talking about that is, it's hard to rush the quarterback when they run these patterns where you just catch a ball, and as soon as you get it, you let it go. Regardless, there's no reads much involved. You're just catching it. And that's why you see sometimes on the pictures of a still shot where the guy doesn't have the laces. It's because he's just catching it and throwing it as quick as he can. He doesn't even take time to get the laces. So, I think that was smart by them because they knew they're two freshman tackles. They're going to have a hard time protecting, and they don't have any form of a running game. But I guarantee you, Juwan Jennings and that Callaway guy, they can play for a lot of teams in D1 football. They can play for a lot of people. And I watch teams like South Carolina get 30-some points on Alabama, throwing the ball up and down the field. I see LSU give up 38 points to Vanderbilt. So, hey, there's a lot of things that you can find wrong, and that we'll get some questions today. I'm beating a dead horse here. I think our team, at this point, except for the injuries to Kinley and Campbell, I would have to think that at this point in the season, we got to be happy for the third straight year to start the season out 5-0.
Have they ever done that before, Dave? I think that's a.
We put it to our stat department. We'll come back.
Our stat department is knee deep in chicken fingers, folks. So when the stat department put his chicken down,
pretty strong there, and then dominating the East like we have.
15 wins in a row.
Yeah, and now you got the East situation with, depending on what Kelly Bryant can do, he got hurt last week. Every team in the Eastern Division, second-team quarterback now, except Vanderbilt, and we've already beaten them. So we're going to play Kentucky with their second or third-team quarterback, South Carolina with their second quarterback, Florida with their second or third quarterback, Missouri would maybe by the time he'll come back. But, that's an advantage for you as far as going against people. Not to mention they got to score against our defense, but they also got to stop our offense. And I would just say this, that our offense was hitting on all cylinders. Jake continues to take good care of the ball.
Oh, yeah.
And our receivers really showed some big-time reads on getting open, finding the areas. And, with the exception of a couple really stupid penalties, that really helped them. I think one cost us a touchdown. We had to kick a field goal. But there's no retaliation. If a guy hits at you, you can't hit back at him. And then Marshall slinging the quarterback to the ground, that was just not really smart.
Now, I did want to jump in. I know you got something to say here, but I want to point out that was as expected, that was a very chippy game from the jump, from the very beginning. There's some guys coming down on the kickoff, guys were talking crap to each other. Tennessee was fighting on its own sideline. They had some guys over there.
Did you catch that? I didn't see it. Chuck Dowdle mentioned it to me yesterday. I didn't see it live.
I had someone on the Georgia sideline hit me up and asked me, what's going on over there? We can see them fighting. And I'm like, I missed it. I'm looking at the field.
Yeah, right.
But, of course, that person's on the sideline, so they're looking
that
across
happens.
the field.
It happens, though, Roddy, when a team is searching for identity and really not having any success, and you have a tendency to put the blame on somebody else a lot quicker because you haven't experienced success. And you see that more times than not among losing teams than you do than winning. But
Jeremy Pruitt said he liked it. He said I'm in favor of it. He said, look, I like the passion. He said, I'm glad that we got a couple of guys who care that much.
Now, he's just glad to see somebody hit somebody.
Oh, so cold. So cold.
But to his Jeremy Pruitt's credit, I do agree with him. You at least have a guy that cares, and you and I have seen teams that have checked out on a coach, who've checked out on a program. I remember, and this is a Georgia situation where they had a ton of guys on defense who were all going to the NFL, and they could not play cohesively on that defense. And I remember one of the guys said, look, these guys are not playing their role. They're trying to get their numbers up. They're trying to make plays for themselves. They're trying to make highlight reels. And it was a selfish attitude, and it cost – I mean, you look at that team, it's like these guys are all going to the NFL, these defensive players, and this defense is bad. I mean, it's talented. It's athletic.
Sure.
It's loaded. It can't stop the run. It's getting burned for plays. And it was guys – and there were one or two guys who were trying to hold it together, and those were the guys who were grabbing other guys by the face mask, telling them to get their head right, get with the program. And I was just but the point was, what I was making, you had a situation in that game where there was so much talking going on and so many cheap shots and pushing around. That antagonism builds. And we saw it, first quarter, second quarter, some stupid penalties. And you take out those dumb penalties, and to me, that's a different ball game.
No, I agree. I think
there's a little jealousy there. These kids want to be where Georgia is. They're from the same state, a lot of them, and it's just hard to swallow somebody coming in and dominating you like that Georgia has, particularly the last 3 years. I mean, I don't know what the score is the last 3 years, but it's bad.
Yeah, I think somebody had it. It's like 200. It's like 200 to like.
I think it was like 122 to 26 or something like that.
I mean, they've been outscored by like 100 points.
And, a couple other points I want to statistically point out. We haven't had but one sack on the season. We haven't been sacked by a FBS team. We have been by Murray State, and we haven't hadn't had a rushing touchdown scored against us all year.
Only team in college football that.
And our only interception came against, where we had the interception against Murray State. So, and that was with our second team. So, very, very accurate passing team. And we've only, we've had a couple hiccups on short yardage, which we'll talk about. But those happen to everybody.
Haven't missed a field goal.
And really, that's another great.
Like 11 of 11.
I don't even think he misses them in practice.
I want to
The guy's a machine.
I want to ask you, Coach.
Sorry, somebody, when I was down on the sideline when he kicked that 50-yarder, one of the guys goes, he's a robot.
Yeah. Oh, no question.
Well, yes, he is a robot.
Yeah, he's like a jugs machine.
And his legs on automatic pilot. He just cuts it on. So, okay, well, how far is it? Okay, dial it in.
Tick, tick, tick.
All right, double-headed question here for you, Coach. A couple people asking about Georgia kind of getting out to some slow starts. Any concern there from your part to see the Bulldogs kind of sputter out of the gate a couple times and then eventually find their footing?
Yeah, I think in this case might be a little bit of a hangover of not playing for a week. You know, it's the first game in 2 weeks, first time you're hitting somebody and to the ground and all that. You know, we didn't have a lot of missed tackles or bad penalties, but I think a little bit of that, plus a little bit of you know, whenever you go into any kind of contest, you don't really know. You can scout people and work about it, but you never know exactly what they're going to do. And sometimes they kind of catch you off guard and do some things you're not expecting, offense or defense. Notre Dame, I'll give it a twofold answer. Since in the Notre Dame game, their defense did some things we weren't ready for, you know, and they, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, they plugged their linebackers and also faked them and went off the edge and caught us off guard for some lost yardage play. And then last week, they ran that catch and release stuff on us, and I'm not talking about fishing. I'm talking about they were catching the ball and letting it go, and then they ran that double move on the count, which was smart. I mean, that was good. They recognized the coverage. We didn't have a jam corner. We had a kind of a squirmed-in corner. We was inside. So Callaway got a good outside release and then came in and had a chance to do double move on it. So that was a good recognition by them.
All right. And they had the time. Go ahead.
No, I want to follow up. The follow-up question on that is, what do you make of the adjustments you've seen from halftime? Because Georgia's given up only one second-half touchdown this season.
Yeah, you know, I usually think that the only adjustment you make at halftime is with your chin strap, you buckle it up tighter. You know, there's too much made about that sometimes. But I think in this case, which we've given some love to Kirby, the 1 week we lost our starting corner after the other corner wasn't dressed, and we really adjusted pretty well on the outside, but they hurt us on the inside against Notre Dame. So then we made some adjustments on that and really shut them down in the third quarter, and they were able to do a little bit in the fourth. But very astute coaching staff on defense with Coach Schumann upstairs talking to Lanning on the sideline. And then you got the master down there, Kirby, who's worried about everything and knows what to do pretty quickly. And then offensively, we continue to show some different things. I still think we got some stuff in the bag we hadn't let out yet. So
James Cook?
I really like some of the things we're doing with our outside receivers. And, you know, you can't say enough. It's just a given with Jake, the way he's been so complete and running the team and then, you know, throwing the ball with a lot of confidence. And our screen game, to me, has enhanced our pass protection because it slows down the rush a little bit. You always got that threat of that quick screen out there to Robertson. And a really good misdirection play with looked like Cook was going to take it on the jet sweep, and then we ran the reverse off of it, which, you know, I think those plays are always good. We haven't been a big misdirection team since Kirby's been here. We don't do any counters much or pull our linemen, but we have run some short reverses with guys. But this was a really good, well-conceived reverse. It really caught them with their pants down.
If you think you're an inside linebacker and you've been looking for that jet sweep because you know they do it, and they also do it to, you know, we run them across there sometimes just to see, so they have to tip their hand on the defense. And you see him get the ball, and you're like, scouting report, that guy can fly. And so you dig in your cleats, and you start going to the right, and all of a sudden he's giving it to to Tyler Simmons going the other way. That is an adjustment that is tough.
Right, and plus
there's some broken ankles.
More times than not, they're playing man. You expected man coverage, so the support on that side's not going to be as strong because the guy in motion is taking his corner over to the other side. So the guy's really got to set the edge on the weak side by himself because all the flow's going with him. You know, most reverses usually work. The times they don't is when you have the mishandling of the ball back there.
Right.
And that's why I always like to flip it up in the air and let the guy run under it as compared to a guy that's not used to trying to put it in his bread basket and the guy having the wrong arm up and all that. Hey, I'm running to the left. I have to have my right arm up. I have my left arm up.
Hey, switch it halfway. Yeah,
just flip it up in there and let him run under it.
This kind of just came to me, and I don't know why I haven't thought about it to this point in the season. You've got to think that the defensive performance that Georgia's being able to put together, now obviously Kirby's heading the ship there, but that's got to be up in Dan Lanning's profile pretty quick, I would think, as far as, Kirby's given him a lot of credit for the game he called on Saturday. The performance that they've had, I bet he's becoming an attractive assistant pretty quick.
Well, we knew he was on the way up. A lot of people were talking about him, and when Mel Tucker left, I mean, we knew pretty early in the process that was the guy that was going to be tabbed along with Glenn Schumann. But you look at some of those calls. Yes, let's tie in the previous question about the slow starts. You had a situation against where the offense started slow against Notre Dame. They did something new. You adjust to it. We were able to put some points up there. The defense started slow because you're going up against an offensive coordinator who has coached against your guys for 3 years. Jim Chaney knows what Richard LeCounte's tells are. He knows he knows your personnel better than just about anybody. He's practiced against them for 3 years. He knew what to call. And then Lanning, Schumann, Warren, Trey Scott, they got their – I was about to say Travis Scott. So you have a situation where those guys, they make adjustments. And we talked to a couple players and said, yeah, the coaches came and they said, hey, this is what they're doing. So here's what we're going to do different.
Right.
And you pitch a shutout from there on out. They get 14 points, which is not unusual in an SEC game, and you get the final 39. And Dan Lanning's calls in that second half, some of those were brilliant. They couldn't do anything. And the Eric Stokes corner
right, that was a good call off the edge. I think the one thing that's very important for all our fans to recognize, collective audience there as far as our defensive staff. You got Schumann up there who really knows the defense inside and out. It's about as good as anybody, but maybe Kirby telling them, what they're doing. And then you got some other people up there. And then you got Lanning who knows you got a feel for the call, and you got everything going through Kirby working it out. And the one thing that I think that people aren't giving us enough credit for is, which I think will help us against Florida too, is Warren was a secondary coach up there 2 years ago. So he knows a lot of their players too.
Exactly.
So we had that advantage as far as, getting a scouting report on their guys, just like they had with Chaney and Shearer and some of those, Rocker, those guys that are on their staff. But bottom line, we got more players than they do. Yeah. A lot more players. And we, particularly running back-wise, I was glad to see them give White some more carries. And the one overriding thing that hits you is just how good Swift is as a total back.
Yeah.
Whether it's running inside, running outside, making people miss, catching the ball out of the backfield, adjusting on the fly on a route, breaking your route. I mean, he's a consummate college back that's going to be the same way in the pros.
72 yards catching, 72 yards rushing.
A guy that I heard Tennessee media in the photo room come in, and people were like, that kid's pretty damn good. They took notice very quickly of DeAndre Swift. They knew coming into the game that he was good. I think, though, the performance he was able to put together.
Well, go back 2 years ago when he was up there as a freshman. He had that pitch to the outside, and he drags 3 or 4 Tennessee defenders like 5 yards. And you think he's a smaller back. He's
just a special player. I mean, when you watch these other teams in the league, certainly Alabama's got a couple backs, but you don't see that from Florida. I mean, P. Ryan's a good, solid back, but you don't see that from Auburn. I mean, we got backs. That's a heck of advantage. We got the backs and we got the kicker.
Yeah.
Not to mention the quarterback, but as I mentioned, I think our defense, particularly against the run, is going to be right up there with Auburn's, and then pass defense we got to get Campbell back. But overall, I like our squad makeup.
Roddy, question here for you. This one from Susan Sumner Wilson. She says, what's this your pie stuff you got in front of you? I think we got one here in Covington, she said.
Yes, the one in Covington is probably the most popular spot in all of Covington. It's one of the most, and I don't say that jokingly. If you go to the Your Pie in Covington, it is an absolute wonderful experience. It is one of the most popular restaurants down there. Your Pie is a concept invented by Drew and Natalie French after their honeymoon in Italy. They saw people getting like individual pizzas made, and they said, we could do that back home. So they came back, started a company where you walk in. You think of it kind of like a Subway. You walk in, you tell them what bread you want, i.e., which crust, what sauce you want on it, and whatever toppings. And then as you're paying for it, they turn around, pop it into this super hot oven. Fantastic crust on it, great toppings that are cooked just right. You go get your drink, get a beer, get an Academia beer, something like that. Sit down. 2 minutes later, they walk up to your table with your pizza, or you can get a sandwich, or you can get pasta. Pasta's a new thing. And again, all that is completely customizable, and by the time you've sat down, it's ready to go. There are over 70 Your Pie locations, and they are all done, all open through Drew and Natalie. Huge Georgia graduates, Georgia alums, Georgia fans, and great supporters of the Bulldog program. I have yet to hear, and I have a lot of people reach out to me, I've yet to hear one bad experience at a Your Pie. I've had people have a bad experience, just about anywhere, but I've never had anybody say they had a bad time at a Your Pie.
Absolutely.
So, big shout out to Drew and Natalie, and thanks for, we need to go back over there and do another show.
They hooked it up. They hooked it up.
That's nothing against our friends here at Champions, but we went over there, they're like, here, let's set out all these pizzas. Oh, yeah, y'all can take those home. So I like that.
Yeah,
that's
that was
a good
not
dig.
bad.
That's a good gig.
Dave McMahon catching us up here. He says this is the first time Georgia's gone 5-0 3 straight seasons. It's the only time.
That's why you listen to the old coach.
He said they did it 2 straight.
I was just throwing out there to see
2 straight seasons: 1910 to 11, 1930 and 31, and 2005 and 06.
We did that 1910 to 11. Who was the coach?
I thought that you were around then. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. He said also last 3 games versus Tennessee combined score 122-26.
Hey, I'm going to just tell you one thing.
Who guessed that right? Yeah.
That you just don't take it for granted. I mean, everybody knows about your rivalry games, and just because you're beating them like a tom-tom, don't take that for granted. Same thing with Tech. I don't have any misery for them being down, regardless. They made the coaching change. It's just good to dominate your league and also your opponent. I don't think anybody, even when Spurrier and was got it running, I don't know how many SEC straight games they won in the East, but I mean they were at Florida.
I don't know that even Spurrier at his height, I don't think was able to pull off 15 division wins in a row. Because Georgia beat him once or twice in there. Then of course Phil Fulmer was, he took him down every other year or so. It wasn't.
When you look at that, that's the other thing. You look at that Florida-Auburn game, which everybody got to watch because we played at 7. I mean, that was a comedy of errors. I mean, 8 turnovers between the 2 teams, 22 penalties, botched fake punt. I mean, and, everybody's all fired up about Florida, but the bookies, they got them a 14-point dog against LSU, and that's a lot for a ranked team.
No question. All right, Coach, a couple questions here. Let's turn the page a little bit over to South Carolina. Phil Rogers really with a good question. He says, Coach, how do you expect Georgia will attack Carolina this week? Do you think we'll see a little bit more rushing, a little bit more passing? What does their defense kind of allow?
Well, they got some good guys up front. That number 3 is just really a dominant defensive lineman. And they've also got Pickens, who's a good player, too, that they got from over there in Anderson. So they got some size and athleticism. They really got burned badly by Alabama on the pass. Alabama just killed them, with all those great receivers. And so I think we're probably going to maybe throw a little more going into the game. That's just based on their secondary. But I feel like we can run on anybody, too. We'll probably see a pretty good balance. But I could see us throwing maybe a little more just because that's one of the things they don't do real well based on what I've seen so far. But you never know. I wouldn't want to project exactly, but I feel good about us moving the ball on them. I really do.
How do you feel about this Helinski kid that the defense is going to have to take on? Kirby Smart, very complimentary of him. Georgia recruited him very heavily. He was a big-time national recruit. What have you seen out of that young man?
Yeah, the one thing I saw about him was his toughness to go with his athleticism, throwing the ball, getting the ball off pretty well, although he got hit a lot against Alabama. But anytime you're going against a team with the athletes that Alabama has, even though they lost a couple linebackers that week for the year, and to pass for that many yards and score that many points against Alabama, pretty impressive. But the next week, they looked like they hadn't even practiced against a Missouri team who's an okay defense, but they only made 1 first down in the first half against Missouri. So, I think our defense, to me, right now, is ahead of Alabama based on what I've seen. But, we just have to see how we react this week. But he's a freshman quarterback. We'll give him some different looks. It looks like after they lost that game, they decided, look, we just can't let this kid try to win the game by himself. Let's get in some tighter formations, run the ball, try to work with our kicking game, and hopefully we can get into a tighter fit game instead of a shootout, which they did against Kentucky, and they were able to keep the ball away from Kentucky and run the ball pretty well. So I don't think they'll run the ball on us with a lot of efficiency, though. I just don't see that happening.
That's like a theme. South Carolina with a tough quarterback.
Yeah,
I will say that the kids they get over there are, and hell, they have to be indestructible because they usually don't have a great offensive line.
If you want to play, you got to, because their line got the lookout blocks.
Yeah, exactly.
King of the lookout blocks. I mean, they have some guys come uncontested about as much as any team I've seen, but I don't know what their deal is. But, the other thing you want to factor into it is a big game for any time you go against your alma mater. You have Will Muschamp coming back. You've got Thomas Brown, and you've got the coordinator coming back to call the plays, Mac. He's done a good job with their team, but this has been on a downer since that loss to Virginia in the bowl game. A big win over Kentucky, which gives them a chance. They still got some games they can win against Tennessee, but they got to play us in Florida back to back. That's a tough road.
South Carolina's a tough job, I think. I mean, it just really is.
Somebody said they had a good team over there about 90 miles from there, too.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. I was going to say, your in-state recruiting, they've got players in the state of South Carolina, but when you're having to compete with the likes of Clemson right now, everybody's raiding that state all the time, too. You got Georgia going in and getting a kid like Channing Tindall right from out of their backyard. That's making it all the tougher.
Might go in there and take a Jordan Birch, too.
Yeah, that would be
And then you got North Carolina, who's a big rival, too, and they beat them in the first game. So, you got to look at their two biggest rivals are us and Clemson any way you look at it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, I would think so, yeah, sure.
Although Florida probably is, since Will coached at Florida.
And Will's a good coach. I mean, a lot of people give him grief about it. Great recruiter, but when you've got to fend off Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, Florida for kids in your own state.
Alabama's going to be able to recruit your state.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you've got Clemson, this huge powerhouse. When South Carolina was getting Marcus Lattimore, Jadeveon Clowney, who's the really good kid in the secondary they had?
Lattimore.
No, they had a kid.
Oh, you said Lattimore. You talking Gillespie?
Gilmore.
Yeah, Stephen Gilmore.
Yeah. When they were getting guys like that, what were they doing? They were winning, and they won an SEC East title. So you have a situation where he hasn't been able to get those caliber players, and even if they have one in the state, you got Clemson there trying to pick them. They've gotten better.
They did get Pickens.
He's not been able to get them in bunches, right? You get a kid like Pickens. Rick Sandage was a kid Georgia was after real heavily. Cam Smith is another kid who comes to mind from last year. So they're getting them, but just not in bunches like they need them.
You need your first 5 that they recruit look great.
Yeah.
You got to look at one thing here.
20, now you get a problem.
They did beat Missouri last year, but you got to look at the fact that I think he and Odom at Missouri came in here at the same time, and to take over programs, and Kirby took this one over, and you got to think that at best they're 4th in the league because they finally beat Kentucky, but. You got us, Florida, Missouri. You got to say that at best they're 4th in the East, right?
Yeah,
I would think so.
They're better than Tennessee and Vanderbilt, and that's about it.
Yeah. Robert Barnes points out, too, good point. He says Brian Edwards is the real deal. He very much is. That is a kid that I've really enjoyed watching his career. Georgia recruited him heavily as well.
Where's he from?
He's from South Carolina as well. I forget exactly where. Got a couple recruiting questions we'll hit real quick. Phil Rogers says, do you think we get Jordan Birch, the big defensive lineman? I do think there's a chance, like I've said all along, but he's a kid who it seems like is going to push this thing out further on. A lot of people are saying, what's going on with recruiting? Getting concerned about it. Don't be worried about it right now. Look, the fact of the matter is, I keep using the big tuna word. You're waiting on these guys that are going to be closer to Christmas. I mean, that's just the case. Yeah. So Birch, I do think still in the mix and will remain there throughout. The other question was, do you think we get commit this week or this month? Zykevius Walker, I've been saying that for some time now. He's had October circled. Look for Zykevius to be a Bulldog in the end whenever he decides to pull the trigger. So
I tell you, if you get him along with Carter and Brunson, man. And, boy, what about the athleticism we saw last week? Trayvon Walker just moving, running around. I heard he had a little bit of an injury there, but might not be ready to go this week. But, boy, he looks good, doesn't he? 44? Woo.
Yeah, no doubt.
You put 44 and 4 and Nakobe Dean and Stevenson. That's 4 big-time defensive players on your freshman. And then you add Alargi, who's a freshman too. I mean, he's redshirt, right?
Yeah, and the first captain, the first redshirt freshman captain under Kirby Smart.
Really?
Good for him.
Very impressive.
He deserves it. He's a good kid.
Very impressive.
And I will give Roddy a little credit, which he never gets anything right. But somebody down there at the French quarter told him that Alargi was doing good in practice, and everybody be alert for it. And dang if you weren't right.
Hey, I get one now and then.
Right. That was good, though. Who would have gone out on a limb and said that this kid's going to be big in the game? That took a lot of guts by you. Well, it must have been a sure thing for you to say that.
Well, it was. I will tell you, not going to get into my source, but that was somebody who had been to practice and knew what was going on. They said, this kid's killing it. And remember, I was the one saying DeAndre Walker's not going to play in this game. So somebody's got to fill in for him. And I also said Devon Wilson will have a big game. He did too. So
you've had a good year.
I got lucky in the French Quarter. I was probably the only one sober enough to realize what was going on.
It wasn't me. All right, we got a bunch of questions we want to get to. Buzzbait Dog over on the board, one of our favorite posters over there. He says, Coach, how much of an advantage do you really think it is coming off of a bye week? How much does that give a program? He said Vols came off of a bye week, and South Carolina fans are bragging they're 3-0 all time under Muschamp coming off of a bye week. How big of an advantage is it?
Oh, they got to look for something. Who have they been playing? Newberry? Who else? Newberry, Walford. Get those 3 games for us off the bye week. I want to hear that. But I give them credit if they are. You got to build it off something. But they're 0-6 against Georgia and Clemson during the regular season since he's been there. So we'll have to see. But I think the one advantage it gives you overall, first of all, you can go teach your players what they did right and what they did wrong. Everybody's tired of me hearing that. But you can also look at some things that we probably figured we were going to be able to do this, and we can't philosophically, so we're going to have to build it around this. Maybe our defense isn't quite as good, so we're going to have to keep them off the field by ball control. Plus, we've got the situation where maybe we can do a few more things with Alinsky now because we've had a couple games that we can see what he did good and all. So we'll see some new stuff from him, but overall – the best thing that happens to them, though, is just the fact their morale, which was low after losing to North Carolina and losing to, they did beat Charleston Southern or whoever it was, Coastal Carolina. Who did they beat? I don't know, one of those teams. But, they were looking down the barrel of a really bad start, and then they got that win against Kentucky. So I noticed Muschamp gave him a couple days off there and gave the game ball to the president of the school because he might not be able to give him another one this year.
Brutal. That's cold, man.
Oh, that's brutal.
No, he might do that. Will's going to get mad at me. Somebody's going to tell him, Coach Donnan, hey, I think he does a good job, and that was good. I mean, you got to butter that new president up, man. Hey, he's going to be on your side for a little while.
Speaking of,
you would know.
Dirk.
Oh, I know that. I never tried to butter mine up enough, that's for sure.
Dirk Dog 1027, he says, I haven't watched much South Carolina this year. Do you feel that there's an area where they stack up with Georgia pretty evenly or maybe even have an edge?
Well, they got good receivers. We talked about that, and they got D-line, got some athletic guys up there in the front. But overall, I just don't think 1 through 44 they're in our area code as far as, they got good players, but that's where our depth is humongous, isn't it? I mean, you guys look at we got to keep them all happy and get them in the game, but we got some really good players that aren't even playing right now. Cook's not playing much. Guys in the secondary, some of those defensive backs, we don't substitute in the O-line and in the secondary as much as we do in the D-line and linebackers and all, but
I want to mention, talking about the guys that, we saw get a little bit more playing time this past Saturday was Zamir White. And I know it's tough when half these plays are going to be passes, half are going to be carries. Of those half that are rushes, we got DeAndre Swift, who could, legitimately you could start a Heisman Trophy campaign for. The guy is going to be an all-around back, put up crazy numbers. But you're not going to feed him that much to have the campaign. You have Brian Herrien, who has earned his stripes. We got a good story over at UGASports.com about him, a guy whose loyalty and dedication is paying off now in a big year. So you got to give him the ball. But I will tell you, when I saw Zamir White get it, that is a kid who is hungry. Yes, he's had the 2 knee issues. He came through looking for contact, hitting people, was tough to bring down, 8 yards per carry average. That is a guy that if you really just want to say, hey, let's go bully ball, which we know Sam Pittman loves to do, and let's just make it so these guys don't want to get tackle him anymore. That is a guy, after you've softened him up with Brian Herrien and DeAndre Swift, and they're running side to side trying to keep up with James Cook. Here comes this missile up the middle looking to hit you.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, I don't know, they have a good defensive line, but towards the end, that is a guy who can put this game so far out of reach, it'll just be a mile. So,
Dave McMahon points out USC wins after the bye week against under Muschamp. 2016, they played UMass.
Oh, me. They played the Minutemen. Was it a doubleheader?
2017.
Was it in Boston?
2017.
Oh, big one. Oh, the Commodores. Hey,
dangerous Commodores.
Commodores change their name to the Possums. Can't play dead at home, get killed on the road.
2018 against the Vols. All at home.
Woo,
Nelly. That 2018 Vol team that was.
Yeah. That was an all-timer.
So those are 3 I'm talking about. You can talk about some wins, but those are 3 that just make my mouth not water. They beat the Minutemen, the Commodores, and the Vols.
A struggling Vols team.
Yeah. All right. So, hey, they got the chance to
yeah, they'll
give them credit. They did a
team.
good job on that bye week of not getting overconfident, right?
Big shout out to our friends at Athens Ford. Over 1,085 vehicles out there for you to choose from. We always talk recruiting. I want to give you some recruiting numbers for Athens Ford. We always talk about trying to get those 5 stars from their Cars.com, Google, and Dealer Rater ratings. They're at 4.7, 4.5, 4.9. Right on as close as you can get to 5 stars without basically giving cars away for free. So our friends out at Athens Ford, west side of Athens, out on Atlanta Highway, near the Sonic and the Sam's Club out there. You can come up, especially if you're a student or a veteran or active member of the military, get a $500 discount on top of any other great deal they're going to give you. And again, I've never had a bad experience. We've had a ton of people go out there and buy cars, and everyone just said, look, that is my car place now. Those people took care of me. That's my car place for life. When we need one for my kid, we're going to go out there. I helped my mom get a car out there. So I've yet to hear a bad word out there. If you've got a bad experience, let me know, and I'll pass it on to them because they'd want to know to fix it. But, again, the customer service out at Athens Ford is unreal. So if you get a chance, swing by our friends at Athens Ford. The discounts they have are incredible. Just click on athensford.com, hit monthly specials, and you can see all the deals they have on new cars. And again, all their pre-owned and current new cars on the lots, anything under 80,000 miles has a lifetime powertrain warranty on it. And they also have some service deals. So if you're like, hey, I need an oil change. Hey, I want to get this. I want a roof rack put on. I want they do some custom work out there, especially on those Ford F-150s. You know, I see those guys running around with the step bars and all that cool stuff. They actually have a customization, you know, specialty ordering department out there that can do some amazing things. They do the lifts. They're fantastic out of the huge service base. So when you get a chance, swing by our friends at AthensFord.com.
Roddy, any injury updates? People asking about Solomon Kinley, Tyson Campbell, Trayvon Walker, who was not out there at media viewing yesterday. Yeah. Anything you're hearing on those guys? Anybody you expect back this week?
I do expect to get well, I think the biggest one to me was Jordan Davis. You know, and we during the middle part of the game. Now, he came out with the crutches on and the big boot, you know, and it just looked bad. But during the game, we were able to talk to some people, and they said, no, it's not that bad. The x-rays are negative on his ankle. He'll be fine. And then Coach Smart yesterday said it was. I think right now Tyson Campbell's a question mark. I think Solomon Kinley's a question mark. I don't think you need Solomon Kinley this week.
No, I don't either.
So, again, if it's he could have played last week. He traveled. And in the situation, remember when they were taking Ben Cleveland, like I think it was last year or the year before, this was a guy who we knew was injured, but they kept taking him, and it was a situation where if you absolutely need him, just like you needed Isaiah Wilson against Notre Dame.
Yep.
You didn't start him in the first half, and then you're like, wait a minute, we need this guy. So you call him in, you bring him out there, but if you don't need him, then you play him. So I think you can get Solomon Kinley back. And now remember, Solomon is going to be the guy fighting to get back out there.
Oh, sure.
I think you're going to have a situation where you have a Ron Corson hold him back by the collar, because that is a guy who has fought for his spot.
He's a senior, you know.
Yeah.
And in the case of people say about Campbell, you know, when you have a turf toe, that's the worst injury next to a broken ankle you can have. It's just hard to, you know, when you stub your toe, you know how bad it feels. Well, you got a turf toe that's been jammed in there, and you just can't. There's no flexibility, and your big toe controls your whole movement with your foot. And this is a 10-3 sprinter, you know.
Yeah.
He just doesn't have that speed.
And
he's getting a lot of rehab and all, but you know, it's hard to. I hate to make conjecture about guys coming back, but he benefited tremendously from not having to play last week and having an open date and not traveling and getting more treatment here. He got 24/7 treatment here Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we'll see what happens.
I think that's a guy they're missing. I really do.
No question. I mean, Daniel's good player, but he's a JUCO guy. He's getting used to it. He's going against a lot better talent, and he's overzealous sometime, you know, because he's always been the better player. Now he's going against some big-time guys, and, he did some good things, and he continues to do it, and I think Stevenson's going to come along too, and like we said, our whole package relies on being able to play some man coverage, and when you can't play it, then you don't get quite as much rush, but you don't give up as many big plays, you know. Yeah. So
I also think Daniels suffered from a little bit of a difference when in the officiating at the JUCO level and the SEC level. He had a play against Tennessee, I think they call it, or maybe it's Notre Dame, they call it pass interference. They reached around the guy. I thought it was questionable. I've covered a lot of JUCO games, as have you. That's not a pass interference call at that level.
Sure.
They let them play a little more physical down there. They don't quite – I don't say protect the wide receivers as much, but it's a little more
it's a little nastier.
It is, you know, and that doesn't fly at this level. And so what he could – I'm saying get away with. What he could do at that level is a little bit different here. And, again, that's a learning process. By the end of the season, he doesn't make that same issue.
Well, everybody in the Nick Saban tree, Muschamp, Pruitt, Kirby – are going to play Alabama, are going to play aggressive man jam bump and run coverage, and you're going to get caught for holding, you're going to get caught for interference, because that's just the way they coach and the way they play. And you know, inexplicably, there's not many pass interference called on those kind of teams, and you don't see it that much. But you saw it against Auburn last week. A guy had 2 in a row, same corner, right in front of their bench, and both times he was guilty. I mean, but he made the same play on the guy twice, called it twice. I mean, if you get called for interference twice in a row, you better change your style, man.
Our guy Jonathan Harding over here, he shared the podcast today, so we really appreciate that.
Thanks
Jonathan.
for that, Jonathan.
Thank you so much. Jonathan,
viewer of the day.
Jonathan says, Tay Crowder is a game changer. Coach Donnan, your thoughts, please.
Well, he was a game changer for the bookies the other night. The guys had with that score both ways, but it was one of those deals. Just like everybody was hoping that Kirby went for 2 there at half because Georgia would have had the halftime spread, but they didn't. But I'm just some of my friends at the club told me that. But seriously, Tay Crowder is an example to me of an unselfish guy that changed positions and has really benefited from it. And his knowledge of football, knowing how to pick up protections, how to run routes, helps him as a defensive player. And the fact that he can play, knows what the offensive schemes are a little bit better because he's been coached to do it. And he did a perfect technique on the scoop and score.
Which you mentioned last week.
Which I'm going to say that he did that little shuffle right before he picked it up. So
he listens to the show, obviously.
He got the momentum. Coach Lanning coaches that shuffle drill. And Coach Schumann. But that little shuffle helps you get under control and then get the ball and go with it. He kind of ran out of gas there at the end and got it in the end zone. But just a perfect call and great job by Stokes hitting the quarterback without a targeting situation, not a launch, but just a perfect form tackle. And, a corner blitz is really the best time to do it's when they're not expecting it because everybody that's got a quarterback, even in the area code of Jake Fromm, they can recognize that the free safety's moving over a little bit to take up for the corner who's blitzing, and they just stand up and throw the ball to him, So the guy turned his back on him, and we hit him from the backside, and that was a big turnover.
I do like to add on to that. Tay Crowder gets his first touchdown, a guy who came to Georgia as a tailback. He gets in the end zone, asked him about it after the game, and it was just an ear-to-ear grin, and he was so excited.
I think everybody was happy for that kid, man, to come in the way that he did. I mean, look, nobody even had expectations for the guy when he came as a running back. I mean, He was a 2-star running back out of Harris County. He was going to go to Georgia Southern, and then all of a sudden you've converted him into a perennial starter at the inside linebacker spot.
And there was a while there, I actually ran into him down in Pine Mountain, Georgia, at a restaurant, and he's got this arm in a giant sling, and I'm like, so what's up? He's like, I'll be okay. The brace and everything just looked terrible. I'm like, this bodes ill for a running back, and then he switched to linebacker. Right. He thought about transferring. Sure. There was a while he was gone. I get it. He stuck around. Brian Harrigan stuck around. Guys who listen to their coaches are big.
Kinley.
This is another guy who stuck around. You have a situation where
Schaefer.
Sure. You had a situation where he could have gone elsewhere. I don't think anybody would have been shocked or surprised. But he stuck around, and it's starting to remind me of a couple years ago when you had Davin Bellamy, Lorenzo Carter, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel. They stuck around when they could have done something else. That unselfishness paid off for them and the team, and I think you might be seeing a little bit of that this year.
What's interesting to me, though, you make that point, but the difference in those guys, Lorenzo Carter, Nick Chubb, everybody knew what those guys were. I mean, coming out of high school. You're talking about now Brian Harrigan.
Nobody knew who he was.
Solomon Kinley,
Nobody knew who he was.
A guy, Tay Crowder as well.
Nobody.
Justin Young is hanging around, and fifth year. It's taken him a long time. Michael Barnett getting some playing time. I think it's really speaking to how this team will reward you for being dedicated.
One of the best quotes of the year is Kirby said, "Why would you want to be in a transfer portal when you play for Georgia?"
Yeah,
because they know they're going to get a chance, man. He's going to be fair to you, you experience a lot of success and play for championships.
Let's be fair. When he's talking about the greener pastures, he goes, especially about a running back, he goes, those greener pastures are the one that offensive line opens up for you.
Yeah,
I was like, yeah, there's some big green pastures out that way.
All right.
How about that Miami program? I got to think some people are going to be hitting some of their recruits.
You would have to think so, yeah.
Speaking of a good recruiting, if you need someone to come fix your house, fix your garage door, call our friends over at Aaron Overhead Doors. Ryan Lucia and the folks over there, they go out and actually get real employees. They don't use shady contractors, guys who one day is working on a roof, the next day is working on a garage door, third day is building an outhouse.
Selling CDs out of his trunk.
Exactly. Hey, he's just waiting for his hip hop career to take over. So you have a situation where.
Question you want to ask us?
All right.
So they actually recruit real, honest-to-God employees. They pay them well. They have ridiculous amounts of loyalty from their employees, and they do charity work, suggested by the employees, saying, hey, this person, at the end of the year, this person could use a help on their house. So our friends at Aaron Overhead Doors, fantastic recruiters of talented employees who are going to come to your house, do a good job, clean up. They know their stuff. I want to warn people, there are a lot of do-it-yourself videos out there. There's a lot of, hey, let me watch this on YouTube and figure out how to fix something. Do not screw around with garage doors. They are incredibly dangerous things. They weigh a lot. And if you start screwing with the torque on those springs, I have seen one of those springs take a...
You did it, didn't you?
Shut up. Send a piece of rebar not only through the ceiling but into the attic. Okay? That's the kind of torque you're dealing with on those things. Don't screw with them. Don't go over there with your little Allen wrench. Think, oh, well, I can fix this. I can tweak it. Get a professional. Don't get hurt.
All right. A couple last questions here. We'll run through these quick. KCKD on the board. He says, what do you do when your with your punter's performance is affected by tension in the game? Is there a way to help him get over that? Or is it sort of like Pete Rose said about hitting? If you're scared to get hit by a pitch, just quit. You'll never be able to do it.
Well, here's in defense of the guy, he never gets to punt. I mean, he punts once or twice a game. And situations such, you can't ever get in a rhythm. And, a lot of times it's kicking where you're just trying to do the pooch punts. Been a little bit of bad slump here lately, and it's on his mind, but he's been practicing good. He's a good kicker, but, fortunately, it hadn't hurt us that badly. It hurt us a little bit against Notre Dame for sure on that one at the end of the game, but you just got to hope that he, he's a sophomore. And, Rodrigo started hitting his stride as a sophomore, right?
That's true.
So, hopefully, the guy's got the leg. I was a punter. I've watched him kick, and he's very good. He just kind of in a little slump here.
Makes sense.
Before we get to the next question, I do want to give a shout-out to our friends at Academia Brewing Company. When you get a chance, swing out by Academia Brewing. It's not too far from Athens Ford. So, go out there, try their amazing beers, try their amazing food, and watch the game. So if you don't want to come into the stadium at noon on Sunday and you want to watch the game out there, they have the huge setup, the specifically designed viewing area to watch Georgia games. You can't beat it. And then I guess the Kentucky game is going to be delayed.
So possibly a 3:30.
3:30 or 6 o'clock. Again, another great time to go out there and watch it. You can get their Hunker Down Brown Ale, their what was the other one?
Aphrodisiac. We got Skull.
Skull. I was going to call it Skull. No, we don't want Skull.
IQ IPA.
Yeah, so when you get a chance, swing out there and try their stuff. Great food out of Academia. Big sponsor of the show, and a great place to watch it.
No doubt.
And you can also pop up your phone and watch the watch along with me and Coach Donnan and Dane Young.
There you go. Mav James with a real quick recruiting question here. We'll finish up on this one. He says, Jake, do you see Jahmyr Gibbs from Dalton earning a scholarship, or do you think Georgia lands a more highly rated running back? I do think the possibility exists that Gibbs ends up with a scholarship, but it's going to be later on down the line. Listen, the kid's interest is picking up quick from LSU, Ohio State, Florida's in on him, South Carolina, USC. So a lot of interest going for this kid. Georgia's staying in contact. I do think they've got some names higher on the board right now, so I think that they're going to evaluate those options, see what happens there, but I'm not writing off the possibility totally.
And a great example of a guy that we could have had, but we just couldn't take him is Plumlee.
Yeah, oh boy, absolutely.
Now, you talk about a guy that's won a couple games for them with his feet. Now, this guy, real deal.
Absolutely.
Do you have a quarterback question?
Mav James also, speaking of quarterbacks, he says, where does Georgia go now that the other quarterback committed to Washington State? Jaden DeLaura, if you missed that last week, went ahead and pulled the trigger with the Cougs, got that offer and jumped on it quick. I think that Georgia is going to explore the transfer portal market. I think that you're going to see them also look at the grad transfer market. I think that both of those are going to be intriguing options for them. And look, there's a lot of speculation about Jake Fromm and what he's going to do. I think that's all still up in the air. I personally have not heard anything definitive. I don't know if you have.
They have not made that decision.
I'm not writing off the possibility that he comes back. You do need some depth there. There's no question about it.
What'd you say there?
What?
What was the last part there?
I said that there is the possibility that Jake Fromm comes back.
Yeah, I would say he's got to look at all the options. He's got to look at who he's got to compete against is going to get drafted. And, it's certainly something he's got to look at. But you also got to look at, we got to look at that 2021 class and, get Williams. We got to get that kid.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
No
all
question.
in on Caleb Williams. I do want to make, I don't want to say it's actually a public service announcement, but for all you people that keep hitting me up, through Twitter, Facebook, whatever, DMs, hey, what's really going to happen with Jake Fromm? I'm not being rude when I tell you I don't know, because we don't know, because he doesn't know. He hasn't made a decision. There have been rumors out there that he's staying. There's been rumors he's going. There have been rumors about his family.
He's going to do one of two things.
Yeah, exactly.
He's going to go or he's going to stay.
His dad said this. His mother said this. His cousin said this. His barber said this. His pastor said X. It's all crap. Okay, we've spoken to some people. No decision's been made. Stop worrying about it. I think
got to get a rating from the NFL. I mean, they'll have that situation where they'll get.
And he's been all over the board at this point. In the mock drafts that I've seen, top of the first. I've seen out of first.
I've seen not drafted.
Right, yeah.
And
so it's a real mixed bag.
And you got that.
His hand size is going to hurt him a little bit as far as projection. That's why he's got to go to the go to the actual workouts and have the private and let people see him. But they look at everything, but he doesn't have a real big hand.
And not only that, you got a situation where this season, I think, will determine a lot about what he's going to do. You win a national title in this, then the guy feels like, okay, I did what I wanted to. You don't win it this year, that's a guy who's like, I'm going to come back and try to win it. So I think you actually have a situation where, did you win the SEC title? Did you win a national title? Jake Fromm is that guy. So I think that will weigh into it. Then, of course, you're like, hey, give me a projection. Where am I projected to go? That will weigh heavily onto it. And they are not going to make a bloody decision until that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people got different opinions, like everything. Like one guy will say this, one guy. But the thing Kirby does is he'll get him to go in there and get the actual grade from the NFL and project. It's hard not to go if you got a chance to be first rounder. I mean, it's hard. But
if he's
no question.
If he's a Roquan Smith first rounder, Kirby will tell him to go.
Yeah.
Kirby's not going to say, look.
But really, the instance of Kirby, what he did with Sony and Chubb has got something to look at. And then you look at guys which are not in the same area code as he is, when you look at Nauta and Holyfield. But he's certainly got an opportunity to get drafted high. That's for sure.
Absolutely, no question. All right. Anything else? Oh, well, I guess we need to talk about this weekend mouthwatering player of the week. Who
I was right about Swift.
You were. You certainly were.
Way to go out on a limb there, Coach.
I went out on a Mockingbird, but I told you he was going to show you some things that you hadn't seen.
That's true. You were
seven
correct.
receptions. You got 7 receptions.
I was off on Nolan Smith. I thought that he would have the big day. Obviously, it was Ojulari who took the lead there. But this week, who do you think breaks out against the Cox?
I just think Jake's going to pick these guys pick them apart. I think he's going to have a big one of those humongous games. I'm going with Jake Fromm.
All right, Rowdy.
Well, Jake had a huge game last week. Was 22 receptions.
But he's going to have
280 yards,
he's
two
going to have
TDs.
a bigger one.
Whew. That's going to be impressive. Let me see. I'm going to go Brian Herrion.
Okay.
I think Swift get it done, but I think Brian Herrion's going to. I think he's running with a full head of steam. And that's going to be a guy who –
You're definitely going out on a limb there.
Yeah.
You guys
well, I mean, if you could pick Swift, I could pick –
once again, you guys –
things are different apples and oranges, though. He not going to give up 7 carries.
You guys take all the offense, so I'll pick a defensive guy. I think Tate Crowder keeps it going. I think that momentum – that was a big momentum shift for him last week. Really probably boosted his confidence even further. So I bet Tate Crowder very involved this week.
I'll switch my pick. Give me Tyler Clark.
Okay. All right. Well, if you're going to switch yours, I'll switch mine then. Coach picked
going
Rodrigo.
A lot of cakes.
If Fromm's having a big day, I'm going with George Pickens. I think George Pickens.
That would be a good one.
I'll tell you one thing now. I'm embarrassed myself on this okra. You talking about something making mouth water? I mean, I've had the chicken in here, and this okra right here will definitely make Uga break its chain.
There you go. Elite GB says, good food and dog talk, my kind of show.
Yeah.
Hey, that's right. We're getting ready to go hit this food, so appreciate
There's
you guys
none left,
tuning in.
There's enough. There's a couple for you, Ronnie.
We appreciate
Hey, I
you guys
offered
tuning
Ronnie
in.
some key lime pie this week, and he turned
did.
it down.
He did.
Unbelievable.
I was in Tennessee.
I'm surprised he didn't come waking me up in the hotel.
I said,
Hey, we got to go back.
We got to go home.
This friend of mine, Tom and Jan Lanier, sent some food over to my house for my wife and I, and he sent some key lime pie. Yeah. And Mary suggested, boy, I tell you, Roddy'd probably like a piece of that. So I called and offered it to you, and he turned it down.
I did.
I said he's on a diet.
I am. I'm trying to slim up a little bit. You know, that's why I wear black all the time, slimming. Anyway, be sure to tune in next week. We will have another show for you. We'll be recapping the South Carolina game and looking ahead to Kentucky. We will also have some great food. So for Aaron over at Doors, Your Pie, Academia Brewing Company, Cable East, and our friends over at the Georgia Game Day Center, we want to say thanks for everybody tuning in, and we will talk to you then.
Yeah.